I've never really been one of those kind of people who seek adrenaline rushes or near-death experiences for fun. However, I have done exciting things in my life. Cliff diving, for one, is something me and a couple friends used to enjoy doing quite a bit, although one of my friends was always seeking higher places to jump from, eventually getting to heights I'd never even imagined reaching, such as the 20-metre bridges and cliffs he'd throw his body into dizzying flips off of. He pushed us to places far outside our comfort zones, and I respected him for it. So when my dad said to me that him and my brother were planning a motorbike trip around the Outer Hebrides of Scotland's Northern Isles and wanted me to join them, I thought it sounded like a bit of fun, so I agreed. I would try to help it where I could, but I didn't realise at the time that my main objective was to just survive. See, the thing about motorbikes is that they come in vastly different sized engines depending on what age you're legally allowed to drive them. My dad was driving a 1250cc Suzuki Bandit, and my brother was chilling on a Yamaha Tenere 700 adventure bike. This means, in layman's terms, that they are very fast, powerful and heavy bikes. Now I had a 125cc with my L plate still dangling from the back of the bike. I hadn't even passed my proper driving test yet, only the basic one-day training course you get that allows you to go out on the roads with a small-sized engine. We began our journey travelling up the coast of Ayr and Prestwick and to the quiet bypass as it was only 5 AM and the rest of the world was still asleep. We reached the first ferry of many that took us to this wee place called Dunoon, and we drove up through the peninsula to reach the first ferry port called Oban, where we got a 5-hour ferry to Barra, an island, I imagine, that only recently had discovered the moving wheel. You see, the beauty of the island and the ones to come in the next couple of days were unparalleled to any photo you may ever see of them. The first night we had the privilege of sleeping in a barn where I slept on a block of hay. Now, I'm not sure how many people have actually slept on a block of hay in a barn, but it's as comfy as you'd imagine, maybe even a bit less. Our adventure then proceeded as we whizzed up the long strait of South and North Uist, where there were more sheep than real humans, but even the real humans couldn't have been real people, as they only spoke this alien language and moved incredibly slowly, since living in such an isolated world you learn to never need to be in a hurry. The beaches were golden and the water crystal blue with crashing waves smashing over the barricade onto the road where all the sheep were grazing by the side of the pavement. The most northerly isle of Lewis and Harris was certainly the most beautiful, but also the most chaotic and terrifying to ride. We rode from the campsite that was at the bottom of the isle and we planned to travel all the way to the top, where I imagine a lot of people will never see in the short time on the planet. The only problem was that the island we were on is in the Guinness Book of World Records for the windiest place in Britain, not ideal for a small bike with a set learner place. The estimated time of arrival from the campsite to Stornoway, the Big Smoke, was roughly 40 minutes, but don't let that fool you, that was the longest 40 minutes of my life. The wind was howling, blowing from left to right across the side of my bike. I could feel nature trying to force me off as oncoming cars and trucks were flying down the barren roads where no emergency services could reach you if things went wrong. The roads would bend and mould around the terrain where I would struggle to find a balance between turning my bike and the winds bullying me into submission. Rain had left the paved road slippery, which gave my already paper-thin tyres even less traction on the road. The cliff edges were just rubbing salt into my already damaged confidence as I could see they had no end to their bottomless crevices, only 10 feet to my right with sharp rocks to cushion the fall. If there was ever a time where I felt completely silent, it was this one. We were all interconnected through our headsets and could talk to one another, but my mind was already having its own conversation with itself, just hoping I could make it around the next corner, and then the one after that, and then the one after that, until we reached the end of the road. Upon arriving at Stornoway, we decided to sit at a cafe to grab breakfast. I was starving when we left, but when we arrived I no longer felt the effects of hunger. I just sat there silent. Now there are closer instances of near-death experiences out there than what I experienced, but I know that if I had taken my eye off the ball, or made a slight error in judgment, I wouldn't have made it to that cafe. I realised all this when my mind had time to think in front of the warmth of the English breakfast that I didn't even try to finish. But I made it, and that was enough. We reached the top and the only thing left to do was to begin the descent back down and go home. The anxiety of falling off lifted as the skies cleared and I could see the sun again. I knew the hardest part was behind me. Now you might hear this and think, there's no way in hell that I'm ever going to do that, and rightfully so. When I got home, both my dad and my brother said they wouldn't have done it either if they had to do it on my smaller bike. It's mental and I personally don't think I will ever be going back there again. But there is something important to learn in such an experience. The whole time I felt the very real presence of danger and death. All unimportant and useless things I concern my life with completely vanished from my brain. Any worry of a possible presentation to conduct or opinion someone may possibly have of me. Any fear of something I may have said 3 years ago or homework to hand in turned off instantly. The only most important things in my life lingered in my mind. Survival, future, happiness, meaning and fulfillment. This rupture of my logic didn't even leave once I got to the cafe, when I got back to the campsite, or even when I got home. It sits with me every time I go to bed, when I wake up and every time in between, and may well stay with me for the rest of my life. This ideology of seeking the bigger picture is a highly valuable wisdom that I recommend all should seek. It could clear a clouded judgment or crumble the misled meanings to our flawed value systems. And most importantly, it lets you understand what kind of person you truly are. Comfort zones are what we hide behind so we don't need to meet our real selves, and so must be challenged constantly. Otherwise, we sink into the sofa like the loose change in TV remotes that too have lost their soul and meaning. So do what's courageous, what's outside your comfort zone, and what will help you find yourself. Join a motorbike trip.